Okay, so this section is about ellipses. An ellipse is an oval. So we're gonna graph an ellipse, and it can either go along the x-axis, so that means it's wide on the x-axis, or it can go along the y-axis, meaning it's wide on the y-axis. So we're gonna find the foci in this problem, but let's just go over some vocabulary. The very ends on the long part of the ellipse are called the vertices, and then the other part on the shorter axis, those are called the co-vertices. And then the foci, they actually come in from the vertices. So let's go to a picture. You can kind of see on this picture right here, the foci are in the middle of the ellipse. It's like if you were pulling it like a string up towards a circle. That would be the foci. And you can see it on this picture. So the vertices are A values, the co-vertices are B values, and the foci are C values. Okay, so vertices are your plus or minus A, foci are plus or minus C, and then we call co-vertices are plus or minus B. Okay, and these are here's another picture. This is from your notes or your textbook. And then we have some general equations that are going to help us find those. But ABC and then B squared equals A squared minus C squared. And that comes from how, if we draw some triangles with these points, that's where that equation comes from. Okay, so first thing, we need to get this in standard form. So when we have standard form of an ellipse, we always want it to equal 1. So with a circle, it always equaled the radius, but we want equals 1 over here on the right hand side. So I'm going to divide by 40 to get that 1, but then I have to divide everything by 40. Right? So let's reduce these fractions. 5 over 40. And again, guys, if you're like, I don't want reducing fractions to hold you up. If you need to, just use Desmos. 5 over 40 is 1/8. Okay, so that's a 1, and now I just have x squared over 8 plus 1/5 with the y squared. All right, so this is our ellipse, and I'm going to graph it just so you can kind of see what's going on. So we have x squared plus y squared. You can't see that. So x squared divided by 8, y squared divided by 5 equals 1. So it's actually wider on the x-axis. Here our vertices come out to 2.8. That comes out to 2.2. That is because the number underneath x squared is bigger than the number underneath y squared. That's how you tell which axis your vertices are on. Okay, so the bigger number is a squared, and the smaller number is b squared. So we need to find the foci, which is not anywhere in this equation. Okay, we have to solve for it using this. So b squared is 5, a squared is 8, and we need c squared. So I'm going to solve for c squared. Minus 8 minus 8. 5 minus 8 is -3. Let's get rid of these negatives by dividing both sides by -1. I'm going to just write it over here so I can see my answers again. So now I have 3 equals c squared. Well, that's not it. Plus or minus c is the foci, so we need to take the square root of both sides. And c is actually plus or minus the square root of 3. I didn't leave enough space. Plus or minus square root of 3. And then we have to think, well, which axis are we on? Which is our main axis? And it's the one with the bigger number. Remember, it's x. So that means our foci are going to be in the X spot. Okay, it's going to be right here. So if we were to graph those points in Desmos, they're going to be just inside from the vertices on our main axis, which is the x-axis. Okay, so that's our first one. The second one's the same process. I'm going to go through it faster. So I need to get my equation in standard form, which means that I have to get equals 1 over here. So I'm going to divide all three of these by 55 and then reduce my fractions. So that's 1 over 11. So x squared over 11 plus, that's 1 over 5. Okay, so this is again my bigger numbers under x. So that means in our foci equation, our values are going to be in the x spot. So I'm already going to get rid of these. It's either 6 or square root of 6. Okay, so that's a squared because it's the bigger number. B squared's the smaller one. And we're going to use the equation b squared equals a squared minus c squared to solve for our foci values, which is c. So 5 equals 11 minus c squared, minus 11 both sides, negative 6. If I divide, those become positive. Square root both sides. So c equals plus or minus the square root of 6. Alright, so now we're finding the foci, and this is already in standard form. The only difference is now we have x minus 3 and x or y minus 6 in parentheses. On these equations where it's just x squared and y squared, it's like a circle. That means the center of the ellipse is at 0, 0. Like on this graph, our center is right there in the middle. But on this new equation, it's just like a circle. Our center would be opposite sign, negative 3, positive 6. So we're taking it and we're moving it. Okay? So that's also, you guys need to move the foci with the whole ellipse as it shifts. So let's look at the equations for that. Let me see if you have them in your notes. You should. So here's your standard form. Let's see where the bigger number is. It's under x, so that means it's transverse along the x-axis, or the main axis is the x-axis. So our equation is x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared. That's just like a circle, except now we're dividing by these other numbers, equals 1. And we need to figure out where's the foci from here. So sometimes they have equations. If not, I have them in my other notes. We're gonna have to figure out the shift. That's okay. We'll use our graphing because I want you guys to have access to those. So let's pretend like it's centered at 0, 0, and then we'll shift. So I'm taking out the shift of the center. And we're going to do what we did last time. This would be a squared, this would be b squared. Let's find c squared. So 3 equals 9 minus c squared minus 9 minus 9. So negative 6. Change them to positive. Hey, this is the exact same one we just did. So c equals plus or minus square root of 6. So if we were to graph that. It's 9 and 3. I want to show a visual. There's our foci, right? So what's happening is we're moving our center to plus and minus. I knew I was off. X plus 3, y minus 6. So I just took my foci and we're going from 0, 0 to -3, 6. So I have to shift these points that same value. I have to go back 3 and up 6. Do you see what I just did? Back 3, up 6. I changed those points. So now my y values are going to be 6, right? And then I just have it flip-flopped. But I had -6, square root of 6 minus 3. You can just move the directions of those and they're the same thing. So if I wrote them the other way, if I put the -3 here, see how my point's in the same spot? Usually when you're working with square roots, you always put the integer or the number in front of the square root. Okay, so it would be this one. Alright, so sorry to break it to you, you are going to have to complete the square like we did in our last section. So I have 8x squared, but here I have a y squared and a y. That's what I have to complete the square on because I have two separate y terms and I only want one, right? In our equation, it'll be y minus some value. So the 8x squared stays, but then let's complete the square with y's. So first, I just want y squared. We're ignoring the x. I know it's 8x squared, we're going to divide later. But we have to get rid of this 3 next to the y. So this becomes distributive property backwards. I'm taking out the 3. Now I just have y squared minus 2y. So do you see if I were to distribute that, I'd be back up at the original. Alright, now I can complete the square. So I'm going to add some value here. And we're going to add it out here too. So divide by 2. That becomes y minus 1 squared with a 3 in the front. And the number that goes here is this squared. So -1 squared is +1. Okay, it gets a little different here. We're actually taking 3 times 1 out here. We cannot forget the 3. So 21 plus 3. So I have 8x squared plus 3y minus 1 squared equals 24. But I need it to be equal to 1. So I'm going to divide everything by 24. 8 divided by 24, I just get x squared over 3. Do you see why I just left that alone? It was already x squared. That's part of the equation. We're done. But here, I had to bring out the 3 because that has to divide. So I just have y minus 1 squared over 8 equals 1. So my equation is this one. We're going to do that again, but our answer is going to be the foci. But we need this in standard form so we can see what a squared and b squared are. So I'm going to complete the square. I have 5x squared plus 10x, and I need to leave space to complete the square. Plus 2y squared plus 12y, and I need to leave space to complete the square, equals negative 13. So this one has the same problem we had last time. There's a number by x squared and y squared. So when that happens, you have to take that out from both the x or y values. So now I have x squared plus 2x, and I still have to add that value, whatever it's going to be. Okay, now let's do the same thing with the y's. I'm going to take out the 2. So distributive property backwards. Now I just have y squared and 6y, and I still have that value I need to add on. Equals, I always run out of room on these. Equals negative 13 plus whatever I add. Okay, so let's do it. It's all set up now. Let's complete the square. Okay, divide your middle term by 2, the number just by x. So I have 5x plus 2 divided by 2 is 1 squared. And to figure out what goes here, you take that number that you just wrote down and you square it. So 1 squared is 1. But out here, I'm not adding 1, I'm adding 5 times 1. Don't forget the number in the front. Okay. Next one, plus 2 comes down, and now I have y plus, find the one with just y, divide by 2, 3 squared, and that number goes here. 3 squared is 9, but remember 2 times 9 over here. Okay, I'm going to simplify that. Negative 13 plus 5 times 1 plus 2 times 9 is 10. Last step, get it equal to 1. So divide everything by 10, and these numbers in the front are going to go away. 5 over 10 is really 1/2. So now I have x plus 2, not 2, x plus 1 squared over 2, plus 1/5 when I reduce that fraction. So y plus 3 squared over 5 equals 1. So those numbers that we pull out at the beginning, they go away when we divide. So this is our standard form. We have an ellipse and it's been shifted. So I'm going to look at the graph with the center at 0, 0. So if I just had x squared divided by 2, plus y squared divided by 5 equals 1. Notice how it's longer on the y-axis this time? That's because our bigger number is under y squared. So that's our a value. So let's find c. Struggling, sorry. So b squared is 2, a squared is 5. Let's find what c would be. Minus 5 both sides, negative 3 equals negative c squared. They can both change to positive. So when I square root both sides, c is plus or minus square root of 3. So that would be our focus. Just remember this time they're in the y value spot because our a values on the y-axis. Okay, it's along the y-axis. So now we need to shift our circle, or not our circle, our ellipse. Okay, we're actually going up 1 plus 3, but that means that we're actually going back 1, right? Plus 1 plus 3. That makes the new center at the opposite sign, negative 1, negative 3. So I need to shift these points back 1, down 3. So So back 1, that's the x-axis. And then down 3 is the y-axis. Back 1, down 3. See how they moved? So just remember, we usually write that integer before. So that will be -3 here. There we go. So our foci, the x value is -1. Just -1. And then there's our square root of 3 with the -3 on both of them. We're going to do one more of just completing the square and writing in standard form. So x's together. And there's a number by the x squared and the y squared. So that means we have to take that out from both the x values. So distributive property backwards, and then leave space to complete the square. Same thing with the y. Take the number by y squared, distributive property backwards, and then leave space to complete the square. -100 plus, so this is going to be 5 times whatever number that is, and then 4 times whatever number that is. So you take the middle term, divide by 2, so we have 5x plus 2 squared, and that number 2 squared goes here, that's 4. Divide by 2, I'm going to bring down this 4. Y minus 5 squared. -5 squared is 25. That's what goes there. So our equation is this equals, and then whatever this is, -100 plus 5 times 4 plus 4 times 25, which is 20. So now to get that equal to 1, we're going to divide everything by 20. So that reduces to x plus 2 over 4. That reduces to over 5, and that's 1. So x plus 2 squared over 4, y minus 5 squared over 5 equals 1. Be that one. Okay, good luck.